Hello everybody, my name's Paul Maruff. I'm Chief Innovation Officer at Cogstate. I want to highlight a recent publication from Josh White in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease that describes the sensitivity of individual and composite scores from the Cogstate Brief Battery to cognitive impairment in dementia due to Alzheimer's disease. This paper reflects the culmination of a number of studies that we've run looking to improve and optimize the Cogstate Brief Battery for detection of cognitive impairment. And in this paper, we've looked at a series of new composite scores that are both theoretically defined and statistically defined. We've improved the normative data itself. We've developed practice modules so that performance in individuals is clearly occurring in circumstances where they know and understand the rules. And we find that through that revision and improvement that we've now been able to develop a series of measures that have very, very high sensitivity to cognitive impairment in MCI and in Alzheimer's disease dementia, and gives us great confidence in your ability to use this test to make decisions about the presence of those two disorders in individual patients. The initial validation for claims about the ability of the battery to detect cognitive impairment were generated on studies that we had conducted in our ABLE population, the Australian Imaging Biomarkers and Lifestyle population, where we were looking at differences between folks who were cognitively normal, classified neuropsychologically, and people who met clinical criteria for the different stages of dementia. So that work led to the battery being used to make decisions about impairment in other contexts. And in those, some publications found that the sensitivity was not the same as what we'd reported in the ABLE group, and in fact was much lower in those contexts. So it got us thinking about what might be the reasons for why we were unable to replicate the sensitivity from ABLE in these other studies. So we began a series of studies trying to understand those dimensions. We developed better normative data that was had the precision of quintiles rather than the deciles that the original Cogstate data was in. And we also ensured that everyone in that normative data set had completed all of the Cogstate tests. So the data set was complete and large. We had published a paper showing that if you made the one-card learning test simpler, you actually increased its sensitivity to impairment. And so the one-card learning test became simpler and shorter. We ensured that everyone who provided data for this study had been practiced on the test. So the Cogstate Brief Battery now comes with a practice module that precedes every test. And they only move into the real test if they're successfully able to complete the practice session. And of course, we generated a number of other outcome measures that were both statistically defined and theoretically defined in terms of combining speed and accuracy measures from the 4 Cogstate tests. And largely this publication then summarizes the results of that in a large sample of healthy controls and a large group of people who met clinical criteria for mild cognitive impairment and a group of people who met criteria for dementia due to Alzheimer's disease. We also looked to see whether statistically, rather than constraining what measures we chose and how we combined them, we actually looked at statistical methods like factor analysis or logistic regression to sort of organize the tests to optimize their sensitivity, rather than saying a complete one-card learning test or a complete one-back test. We allowed the statistical methods to say it's 0.3 of this and 0.4 of this and combine the weighting of those scores using some polynomial function. So we challenged those as well to see if there was anything in there that we could gain by using statistical methods. The publication shows in the table The large figure 2 shows the relative area under curve and gives a 95% confidence intervals for those. And so area under curve is related, of course, to effect size, and those effect sizes are given in the publication. But you can regard the area under curve figure as a sort of a league table of those measures that won. And by won, I mean those measures or combinations of measures that showed the highest sensitivity or best ability to separate cognitive impairment associated with MCI from that associated with from healthy adults, and similarly cognitive impairment associated with dementia. And to our surprise, well, not so much to our surprise, was that the measures that we'd originally worked with, in particular the combination of accuracy from the learning and the working memory tests, that is the combination of one card learning and one back accuracy, provided for us the best sensitivity or the greatest sensitivity to cognitive impairment in both MCI and Alzheimer's disease. And so, that was reassuring. That was the measures that we'd originally used and those in which we use in our clinical trials. So it was reassuring that came up again. But other measures showed very similar sensitivity, so the total errors, the average accuracy. We looked to see whether combining speed and accuracy from those more difficult tests would bias anything in terms of greater sensitivity, and it didn't. Adding the speed of performance didn't show us any substantial advancement over just measuring the accuracy of performance. Interestingly, too, the sort of statistical measures, that is those that have their aggregation optimized through understanding the shared variance using different statistical techniques, really didn't beat the combination of the standardized composite score that we use. And so just from a simplicity sort of parsimonious idea, we recommended that we retain the theoretical composites to look, both because they make more sense and also too because the potential for sample-specific combinations are diminished. So the paper's in press now. It shows that we have returned our test back to strong basis for its sensitivity to these two diseases, and provided us with a number of new composite scores to investigate in other cognitive syndromes, if you like, that are associated with degenerative brain disease, and indeed other cognitive syndromes that are associated with psychiatric disease as well.